This disc is made from rubber. This disc is made from old light-up discs. This disc is made from Legos, and this disc is made from 5 different premium plastics from the top manufacturers in disc golf. And all of these crazy ideas could only come from one place, the home of misfit plastics, Trash Panda Disc Golf. And for some reason, we've hardly talked about Trash Panda before on our channel. So come along with us while we test their 5 discs in 5 days, because the plastic is in the details. Hey everyone, it's Greg from Six Sided Discs, and we haven't covered Trash Panda that much on our channel. And I was thinking about that recently and trying to figure out why. Their discs are pretty popular. We've done custom runs with them before. I've met Jesse in person, talked on the phone many times, and he's even been in our videos a couple times. And the more I think about why we haven't covered Trash Panda that much before, the reason starts to become quite obvious. You see, most manufacturers release a disc, they have their players and social media hype it up, they maybe spend 10 seconds talking about the design philosophy and why they made it, and that's that. Trash Panda, on the other hand, has a very popular YouTube channel where Jesse shows in far greater detail than any other manufacturer in disc golf how they make their discs, where the plastic comes from, and so much more. And honestly, that really feels like most of our job has been done for us. I don't have to do much research. All that information is already out there. But while I was watching their 5 discs in 5 days a few weeks ago, it dawned on me that something was missing. While they did compare some of those limited run plastics to their original versions, we didn't get to see how any of those discs stacked up against the competition. So that's what we're here to do today. Not only do we have all 5 discs, but we have some discs to compare them to see if we can learn more about how they fly. Oh, and real quick before we get started, a huge shout out to Jesse and the team for hooking me up with this 5-pack, technically after they were sold out. You guys rock. Now, on the off chance you didn't see the 5 discs in 5 days videos, let me explain what this is all about. For the last couple years, to help promote Trash Panda's holiday used disc swap, Jesse and the team put out a series of 5 videos in 5 days, where they make discs out of plastic blends they've never tried before. These are usually limited runs from a limited supply of plastic, and then they release them as a 5-pack. And this year's version sold out all 500 packs in just a few hours. And since the discs we're showing you today are all sold out, we're also going to try and figure out what they fly like so that you could essentially get something with a similar flight. Let's begin with the Canyon. This is the Canyon, an overstable mid-range rated at 4302. And this is the first time they've tried to do a run of any disc in rubber, which may have been a mistake because it actually broke the Canyon mold. More on that later. This is Trash Panda's first distance driver, the Procyon, and this version was made from melted down Legos. This disc is not actually in an all-new plastic, but rather it's a brand new mold to Trash Panda, the outer core. Now, the outer core doesn't have flight numbers yet, but we do know that it's pretty overstable, so we will compare it to 1 or 2 overstable putters. Next, we have their understable fairway driver, the Ozone. This Ozone is in one of the most interesting plastic blends we're going to see today, which is something that Trash Panda has been trying to figure out for years. Super plastic. More on what super plastic means in just a minute. And last but not least, we have this, the inner core. The inner core was Trash Panda's first disc. It's a super straight putter, great for throwing or putting. But this one is a little bit different, in that it weighs a whole lot less, just 116 grams. And that's getting into like dyno disc style ultralight territory. But before we watch the ultralight inner core do battle against the Glitch and the Spore, let's circle back to the Canyon, now in rubber. Yep, the Canyon that quite literally broke the mold. This is Rubby, aka the Rubber Ducky, aka the Rubber Canyon. And in terms of rubber discs that we've worked with, it feels pretty good. I would put it right in the middle in terms of grip and flexibility, which is probably a good thing because the really floppy stuff is pretty hard to throw.
What the? What just happened?
And to help us figure out what the Rubby really flies like, we'll be comparing it to the following. The Divergent Discs Golem, rated at 4204. It's a rubber approach disc. So yeah, we had to include it. Another rubber approach disc, the Elevation Screech, here in their Eco-Firm blend. Both of these rubber discs are probably way more overstable than the Canyon, but they're rubber. And then we have 2 discs that we think the Canyon might actually fly like. the Lone Star Copperhead rated at 3402, and the Discraft ESP Zone SS rated at 44-12. Oh, and of course we have a premium plastic Proto Canyon as well. First, let's see the Rubber Canyon in action. Off the tee for Josh's arm, it's not actually crazy overstable. He releases it flat, it drifts off to the right briefly before a fairly average fade, which is already in stark contrast to the Proto Canyon, which was much more overstable. So what about our other 4 discs? Well, the Screech is insanely overstable, so that's not it. And the Golem was more of the same, crazy beefy. Even the Lone Star Copperhead is pretty overstable. While the Zone SS is, wow, on a very similar line, almost exactly the same. Let's actually see that side by side with the Rubber Canyon. And yeah, wow, if Trash Panda doesn't drop a Rubber Canyon again in the future, get yourself a Zone SS because they fly almost the same. And I say almost because, of course, the Rubber Canyon is rubber. And one of the best features of a rubber disc is this, absolutely sticking the landing. That rubber eliminates almost any skip or slide that you might get from premium plastics. So until they make a rubber Zone SS, it's Rubber Canyon or bust. Next up, let's take a look at the Procyon. Trash Panda's first distance driver, the Procyon, is named after a star 11.5 light years from Earth, hence the 11.5 speed rating. And that makes this a great opportunity to talk about how Trash Panda names their discs. They're all named after nature, and specifically chosen based on the speed of the disc. The slower the disc, the closer to the inside of the Earth they get. The faster the disc, the farther away. For example, their 2-speed putter is the inner core, which probably makes the outer core a 2.5 or 3-speed. While the 4-speed Canyon and 5-speed Dune are named after features on the Earth's surface. Meanwhile, their 8-speed fairway, the Ozone, is up in the atmosphere around the Earth. And of course, the 11.5 speed Procyon is an object far away in space. As far as naming concepts go, this is one of my favorites in all of disc golf. Back with the Procyon then, after that 11.5 speed, we find 4 glide, -1 turn, and 2 fade. And the Procyon is not just made of recycled plastic. Even the mold itself is recycled. Though Jesse can't disclose what the Procyon used to be because, of course, he signed an NDA with the previous owner. What we do know, though, is that this one isn't made from just any recycled plastic. It's made from Lego, a request that Trash Panda has received for years. They finally cracked the code on melting down beautiful, colorful Legos to get this, the grayest of grays. Yeah, unfortunately, sometimes when you melt down a bunch of plastics, they don't just magically come out with all these pretty swirls. They sort of average out to this. But never mind the color, the feel is great. It's immediately familiar, not too hard, not too soft, slick enough to cleanly release, but not so much that you can't get a grip. And it also has just the faintest whiff of acrylonitrile butadiene styrene, better known and much easier to say as ABS. It's a somewhat stinky additive that makes plastic stiffer. You also know this smell if you've ever purchased radioactive waste or toxic waste plastic discs from Doomsday. Anyways, we'll be comparing the Procyon to several popular -1-2 distance drivers, including the Latitude 64 Grace, the Streamline Trace, the Innova Race, and the Discmania DD1. Off the tee, released on hyzer, the Procyon is not going to turn. It doesn't even flip up to flat. Instead, it holds that hyzer for a big fade. Thrown much harder, flatter, and a bit low, the Procyon holds straight, but this slight tailwind that we have just drops it out of the sky. If you give that a little more height without the tailwind, you get this, over 450 feet of pushing distance with a reliable late fade. Very nice. Now, for the other discs, from hyzer, the Innova Racer flips up to flat, disc gets some turn before fighting back. It's a nice straight flight, but definitely less overstable than the Procyon. This run of Orbit Grace is a pretty beefy one, and it gets just a bit of turn before fighting back, so that's not too far off. The Streamline Trace and Discmania DD1, though, both get pretty similar flight paths, though the Trace doesn't go nearly as far. But honestly, if you like the Procyon, you don't need to shop around, because the LEGO Procyon flies just like the regular premium Procyon. Before we dive into the outer core, a quick reminder that the new year is right around the corner, and that means that it's almost Disc Golf Expo season. We had a blast at Disc East and Disc South last year, so you know we are absolutely going again. Tickets are available now for Disc East on January 24th and 25th in Marlborough, Massachusetts, as well as Disc South on March 7th and 8th in Allen, Texas. Both expos have exclusive drops from the top manufacturers in the game, appearances from your favorite pros, content creators, and more. So get your tickets and stop by our booth to get a free Flight Numbers Don't Matter Velcro patch while supplies last, and some exclusive drops that we hope to announce in the near future. Now, back to the outer core. Yep, this year Jesse and the team threw in a curveball in 5 discs in 5 days and just put in an entirely new mold. But it's a mold that they've been in development on since the inner core was released. On paper, the outer core is just a beaded inner core. But apparently, in practice, it's a whole lot more overstable. And it's incredible just how much a bead can change the flight, because here's the inner core flying nice and straight, as it tends to do. And here's the outer core doing something else entirely. The outer core is super overstable. Not much glide, you can throw it super hard, and it just fights its way to the ground in a hurry. And while that might not appeal to everyone, it should appeal to anyone who wants super accurate approaches like this, or parking 240-foot tee shots like this. We happened to be testing some Prodigy putters the same day we were recording the outer core, and its stability was not unlike a sort of beefy PA3 or the PA1. But once again, if you like the feel of the outer core, you don't need to shop around, because the outer core is still in stock today. Moving on to a plastic literally years in the making, this is the Ozone, in what Trash Panda is calling super plastic. Super plastic is a product of Trash Panda's disc recycling program. Created in 2022, Trash Panda has received over 15,000 discs since. And while there are tons of positives to take from that, it has also resulted in one very specific issue for Trash Panda: space. They never say no to recycling a disc, but they do have to sit somewhere in their warehouse, and that pile of plastic has grown and grown and grown. But they had a problem. Simply separating out this plastic by manufacturer or color doesn't necessarily mean that you end up with perfect blends that can be mixed together. In fact, manufacturers' plastics seem to vary and change from time to time. And no matter how hard Jesse and the team tried, they weren't really coming out the way they wanted. Fast forward to this year, and Jesse and the team finally came up with a solution. The goal was to mix together a bunch of premium plastics from the top manufacturers in the sport. Now, Jesse never said who those top manufacturers are, but we can assume that if it's based on the volume of discs sold, it would include Innova, Discraft, MVP, Latitude 64, and Prodigy. But it's not just these 5 brands, because there are so many other quote-unquote brands made by these manufacturers, including, but not limited to,
Infinite Discs, Millennium, AGL, DGA, ThoughtSpace, Dynamic Discs, Westside Discs, Discmania, Castoplast, Axiom, Streamline, Mint, Remix, Jester.
The list goes on. Long story short, they did it. After tons of fine-tuning, they were able to deliver this super plastic, a semi-translucent, grippier premium plastic than most runs of the Ozone. The fact that this was one of the ultimate goals of the disc recycling program, I think, makes it safe to say that we should see some versions of super plastic available for other Trash Panda molds in the future. But for now, we have it with the Ozone, to test alongside 2 other understable fairway drivers, the Discraft Heat and the Innova Sidewinder. This UV glow heat gets a smooth flip up from hyzer to gently turn for the rest of its flight. while the Innova Star Sidewinder does more of the same, pushing way out on a huge turn before a late forward fade. The Ozone is plenty understable, as we see Josh sort of cranks it over on this first throw. But if he's a little more precise and controlled with it, he can get smooth hyzer flip lines like this, and more precise turnovers like this. But at the end of the day, the Super Plastic Ozone basically flew like any other Ozone. So, if you want an Ozone, you know what to do. Super Plastic is definitely one of the most intriguing plastics Trash Panda has come up with this year. And I can't wait to see what it does in other molds in the future. But a plastic that left a much bigger impression on me personally is this, the ultralight inner core. Made from ground-up Night Eyes flashlight light-up discs, they came out super lightweight, only 116 grams for this one. But they're also grippy and not too stiff. And it's an incredible combination that Josh and I fully intended to give a proper flight test to, until we got a bit distracted doing this.
Oh!
And we just couldn't not throw them back and forth.
It's so good.
Which is why we had to test it against the hybrid toss and catch discs from MVP and Discmania, the Glitch, and the Spore. And the quicker we show the Glitch and Spore flying, the better. Here they are. Yep, so cool. I'm sure you've all seen the Glitch and Spore many times. You probably own one of them, in fact. But we need to talk more about this inner core because it is crazy. It floats and glides so much more than a Glitch or a Spore. It genuinely feels like it's defying gravity. It just keeps floating and floating. And what's crazy is that you might expect that it's not able to fly like a normal disc or like a normal inner core, and that it would just be crazy understable. But it's not. It's maybe a tiny bit more understable, but it takes the inner core's flight numbers of 24, negative 0.50, and it turns it into something more like 29, negative 10. It has so much glide and float that Josh can toss it right up in the air and straight back to himself.
Comes in a little hot.
If there's one disc from this video that Trash Panda absolutely has to somehow add to their stock offerings, it's got to be this one. The ultralight inner core is maybe the most fun disc that I've ever thrown. But what do you all think of these 5 discs? Did you purchase a 5-pack? Let us know what you think of them in the comments below. And also comment below what other crazy ideas Trash Panda should try in the future, or if other brands should try something similar. For 6-sided discs, I'm Greg, wishing other manufacturers would show us a look behind the scenes as much as Trash Panda does. We'll see you in the next one. And all of these crazy ideas because only... Now, the outer core doesn't have flight numbers yet, so we... What am I trying to say? Now, the outer core doesn't have flight numbers yet, but we will see if we can at least. Now, the outer core doesn't have flight numbers yet, but we do know that it's supposed to be at least a bit overstable. So we'll compare it to 1 or 2 putters that are... And to help us figure out what the rubby really flies like... And it even has a faint whiff of acrylonitrile butadiene styrene. Acrylonitrile butadiene styrene. And it even has a faint whiff of acrylonitrile butadiene styrene. Can we do it? Can we? And it also has just the faintest whiff of acrylonitrile butadiene styrene, better known and much easier to say as ABS. Long story short, they did it. And after tons of fine tuning, we're able to But at the end of the day, the Super Plastic Ozone flew pretty much like any others. Okay. If you like this content and want to see more, please consider liking the video, subscribing to our channel, or becoming a member. Your support makes this content possible.